Marilyn was always on time. She was very punctual, 7:30 every day. And as soon as I walked in, I heard there's a problem. Marilyn didn't come to work today, and she didn't call. Something's wrong.
I just can't believe this is happening. I kept a belief, in my own innocence, even if nobody else believed in me. I knew that the truth would come out.
Learning her 65-year-old mother, Marilyn Cannanen, never made it to work, Cindy Newman stops by her house to check in on her and immediately runs into an unexpected roadblock.
My sister called me up and she said, I can't get into Mom's house. I said, what do you mean you can't get into Mom's house? Just use your key. My key doesn't work. And so I said, well, let me see if Rick knows anything.
47-year-old Ricky Cannanen, the oldest of Marilyn's 3 children, recently moved in with Stacy and her partner, Susan Cowan.
And I said, hey, my sister can't get in Mom's house. What's up? We need to go check on Mom.
Marilyn Cannanen lives on her own in a comfortable Florida house she bought with her husband 24 years earlier. Though she's house-proud and tidy, her worried children find her home in disarray.
Ricky opened the door, we walked in. There was some pictures just as you walk in our house of my sister and I. Those were missing off the wall. And there were some papers laying all over the counter.
What's all this?
I saw deposits. I was quite shocked to see.
Shocking because they are checks made out to their father, Richard Cannanen, who no one has heard from in years.
Richard Sr., he had been receiving Social Security checks, disability checks, and once he disappeared, those checks continued to go into their bank account, and they were being cashed and used by Marilyn.
He came back. The monster's back.
Have the family's worst fears come true? Ricky certainly thinks so.
He got her.
No. No.
Look.
No.
She's been stealing his Social Security. He took her. He came back.
Well, I called my sister and said, Mom's not here, something's really wrong, you need to get here.
Stacy and Ricky asked the sister to come over to the house, and she had a deputy meet him there.
This is a deputy to help us file the missing persons report.
Dad's back.
What? No!
He took her.
Oh,
He took Mom.
Oh, Dad, how do you know this?
He came back.
How do you know? Officer, you have to do something.
It's an unusual scene. 3 adults in a near panic, not over their missing mom, but over the return of their father.
We reverted back to our childhood. It was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And my sister actually made the statement that night.
He told me when I was a kid that if I ever had any children, he would hurt them. What are we gonna do?
Richard Sr. was a horrific, bad husband. He was abusive. He was a horrific father. It was just kind of a surreal upbringing that is hard to imagine.
Where the hell did you go, damn it? I said get your butt in the house! Ugh.
The Cannanen siblings have every reason to fear their violent alcoholic father.
Dad, wait!
He did things like dragging little Ricky out into the woods and chaining him up overnight because he'd done something he didn't approve of.
He beat all of the kids. He had apparently no qualms at all about bloodying somebody just because he was kind of mad because the TV wasn't working or lumps in the potatoes.
He was just a horrific, drunk, mean, awful person by all accounts.
At the Orange County Sheriff's Department, the Cannanen siblings are terrified that their father has apparently come back and taken or even killed their mother.
What can you tell me about your dad's whereabouts?
I don't know where he is.
She's telling me about this story with her father coming back. I said, well, where's your father? And she says, well, he left. I said, when did he leave? And she said,
1988. September 15th, 1988.
which was 15 years to the day that Marilyn disappeared.
When it was brought to our attention that Richard Sr. had been missing since 1988, and there was an allegation that he may have been responsible for Marilyn's disappearance, certainly one of the first things that we did was try to locate Richard.
Now we had two missing persons, Marilyn Cannon and Richard Cannon. And I started to look into his background to find out, if he'd been heard from, and could find nothing on him at all past September the 15th of 1988. And what is even more strange about it, as I look into this case, I find that nobody wanted to find him, including his family.
Right. You look great.
Oh, thank you.
Happy
It's Cindy's wedding day, and like most brides, she's filled with nervous energy. But getting married isn't what has her on edge.
Her father had told her that if she married this guy, that he was going to show up at the wedding and kill them both. And they were really trying to keep it quiet about the time and the date and where they were going to be married.
You look great. And the best thing is, Dad's not here.
I knew that she didn't want our father walking her down the aisle, which that to me was a no-brainer. I wouldn't expect her to want him to walk her down the aisle. Couldn't even stay sober for our high school graduations. He almost got thrown out of mine just because he was being so loud.
Cindy's prayers are answered. Her dad, Richard, never shows up to the wedding. In fact, the family never sees him again.
Of all of the people that I talked to during this investigation, I found nobody who had anything good to say about him. I was not able to find anybody who missed the guy, liked him in any way, shape, or form.
Richard Cannon vanished. No one called the police, and no one filed a missing person report. But it isn't the first time that he or the entire family would pick up and disappear.
Every time the townspeople got a hint that something wasn't right in our house, either they saw bruises or they could tell something was wrong, we moved. We actually moved out of 2 states in the middle of the night because he was too worried he'd get in trouble.
Get over here now. You got 10 minutes to pack your bags. We're moving. Go! Get out of here.
You learn really quick, don't make close friends because you never know how long you're going to be there, where you're going to end up next. So I'm like, why make friends? I'm just going to move again.
Get in the car.
From Minnesota to Arkansas, Maine to California, the Cannonans keep moving. Years later, the family finally settles in a quiet community in Orlando, Florida.
When we moved to Florida, we lived in a city for the first time ever in my life. We'd always lived in the country, so you didn't have neighbors.
Richard Cannon is not exactly neighborly.
Hey! Shut that damn dog up! Shut up. Shut the dog up, I hear it. Shut up!
The neighbors next door said that he would just come out and unleash a tirade of swearing and threats. They were just terrified of the guy.
Shut that damn dog up! Shut up, I said! Don't you even look at me!
Then one day, Richard runs off, apparently for good.
Your father's gone. I don't know if he's coming back. He just left.
He'd never been reported missing. Most of the family was afraid of him, and they really weren't that concerned that he was gone.
I'm not sure what's going on, but he's gone.
In fact, they were glad that he was gone.
It's not the first time he'd left, so I was like, oh, good. Quiet few weeks, quiet month, whatever, however long he's gone. He did it for 2 weeks in Arkansas, and it was the best 2 weeks of our lives. just took off.
After 15 years, is Richard finally back? And does he hold the key to finding his wife, Marilyn? 65-year-old Marilyn Cannon has vanished, and her 3 children fear their abusive missing father has come back to do her harm. However, Marilyn's neighbors have a different theory.
I went out to the neighborhood and contacted the neighbors and people to find out who knew her and had they seen her and had they seen anything else.
I got to know her, just me and her talking across the fence.
Oh, Marilyn, hey. Hey.
She was okay, and then all of a sudden, she kind of was not okay. She said,
I'm doing pretty good. But you know what? I don't know if I told you, but when my father passes away, I should come into a pretty good amount of money.
She mentioned she was scared.
I'm kind of worried, though, because I'm afraid that Stacy and Ricky might try to take it away from me.
I said, what are you going to do? She said, I don't know. I'll figure it out later.
I don't know.
There was a fairly sizable family fortune that was left to Marilyn, and somebody from the family apparently got a hold of Ricky and Stacy and let them know that Marilyn had inherited this money.
Marilyn fears her daughter Stacy is planning something.
She told her coworkers that Stacy and her girlfriend were looking for a house in her neighborhood, and she was very concerned about that. She didn't want them that close to her. I just think she liked her privacy, for one thing, and I just think that she was worried what they might do. Certainly, there was something amiss. In an investigation, you start with the people that are closest to the person that you're looking for and work your way out. And in this case, her family were the folks that were closest to her, so we began to look into their backgrounds a little bit and see what they might be involved in.
Unable to turn up anything on her husband, Richard Cannon, police take a look at Marilyn's 3 children, and they start by questioning Cindy.
She indicated that Ricky had harbored some resentment toward their mother because he believed that she had not protected Ricky from their father, who was very abusive.
If he got up in the morning and he was drinking a cup of coffee, half the day would be a good day. If you got up in the morning and he started with a cup of vodka at 8 o'clock in the morning, you knew it was going to be a rotten day the whole day. Probably 5-6 days a week, most weeks. My parents were constantly fighting, and of course, if us kids were in the house, we would get the brunt end of getting beaten. He loved to hit and leave bruises.
You expect me to drink that crap?
They had a fight in Arkansas one time where he actually took a knife and carved almost a horseshoe shape in her forehead. He tried to drown her in a pool and held her underwater in our backyard pool for quite a long time. She came out very bruised that day. She almost always had bruises. Almost always.
Clear voices would say, well, she should go to the police. If she did go to the police back in those days, where would she have gone?
Dad, calm down. Relax.
Calm down,
The cops would come, and he would come to the door, and the cops would ask if everything was okay, and he'd say, yeah, everything's fine, and they'd leave. Domestic violence was one of those things in those days that we didn't get involved in. It was a family problem.
You get in the middle of this, I'm gonna get that gun, and I'm gonna shoot you.
Ricky said he was very, very abused as a child, and he grew up a loner. As soon as he was able to get away from the house, he did.
Ricky leaves home shortly after his father runs off.
According to the sister, he traveled all over the country, lived different places. He would show up at different times over the past 10 years, stay for 6 months, and then be gone for 2 or 3 years, and they wouldn't hear anything from him. He was just kind of a loner and a drifter.
When Marilyn's father dies after a long illness, Ricky doesn't make it to his grandfather's funeral. Stacy and her partner Susan go looking for him.
We went to a trailer park that I don't remember how we found out he was living in, and it was a shambles. The place was a shambles.
Ricky, dude, what are you doing living in a place like this?
And this is where I live now.
No.
Susan and I were fixing to move into a huge 4-bedroom house. And so I said, you know, if you want a place to live, you're welcome to come and live with us.
Are you sure?
Yeah, your family, come on.
Stacy has a special place in her heart for her wandering older brother.
Great.
He was always like the protector, the family protector. He would get involved in everything he could get involved to protect us. He did it for everybody. If Dad was swinging, he was right in between it as much as he could be. He protected my mother more at some times, because I remember several times that he would get really hurt in between their fights. And I remember one fight in particular where my father told my brother, if you get in the middle of this, I'm just going to take the gun and shoot you.
Ricky moves in with Stacy just up the block from their mother.
Easter Sunday, he cooked a humongous Easter feast. I'm talking huge, ham, turkey, the whole fixin'.
With their dad Richard gone and Ricky back in town, the Cannonans feel like a family at last.
Everybody was over. We had, for us, our first ever really normal family dinner with everybody present. We did that throughout the summer, you know. Memorial Day came, we had a barbecue and everybody was over. July 4th came, I think we went to my sister's and had a party. We did a lot of family things. It was just very normal.
That was probably the happiest time. She and Ricky had come together after so many years. She just loved having a big brother around. She loves her family so much. And she was so happy to finally have some sense of a normal family.
The four of us finally figured out what real families do. They don't fight and argue amongst each other. They actually enjoy each other's company, and it was nice. It was nice to have us all together.
The family's happiness does not last long. Their mother Marilyn is missing, and memories of their father continue to haunt Ricky.
We'd stay up and talk after dinner, and he would dwell on some of the stuff from the past, but I felt that it was more anger towards things my father had done to him. It was just a variety of different fights that they would have, and it could go on for hours until I finally be like, you know, we go to bed, I'm done. I tried to put those things behind my life. I knew what we lived through. I didn't need to keep being reminded.
She doesn't need to be reminded because Stacy can't forget. Each day living with Richard Cannonan has left scars for life. And at night, the violence and horror is even worse.
For me, nights meant rapes. Okay, what night is he coming in? What's tonight going to be like?
He started molesting her when she was 4. He fed her alcohol to make her compliant. So he was getting her drunk in kindergarten, first grade, all the way up through the rest of her life.
The very first time he actually penetrated me was in Arkansas with a loaded pistol in my throat. Basically, that was my hint to keep my mouth shut and stay still and just take it, because he would have pulled the trigger on the gun.
For 2 months, detectives with the Orange County Sheriff's Office have been investigating the disappearance of 65-year-old Marilyn Cannonan and have yet to come up with a single solid lead. Her 3 children fearfully suggest their father, Richard, gone himself for 15 years, is behind it. But right after Marilyn disappears, it isn't Richard that's spotted at her house. It's her eldest child, her son, Ricky.
We learned that on the day of Marilyn's disappearance that Ricky had gone to Marilyn's house and had been seen making several trips away from the house, carrying bags out to his vehicle and leaving.
Stacy says there is a logical explanation.
I knew he was taking stuff out of the house. I had rented a storage unit for my mother's belongings because he was saying that the IRS was going to come in and take the house. So, sure, if they want a house, they can have a house, but they're not going to get everything she owns.
Ricky told her that the IRS was after Marilyn for cashing Richard Sr.'s Social Security checks for the past 15 years.
Ricky changes his story. The villain is suddenly no longer his father, but the tax man. And with no actual signs of foul play, detectives aren't even sure a crime is committed. According to Ricky, his mom Marilyn probably grabbed a big inheritance check she just received and decided to run.
I come home from work one day and he said, I talked to Social Security, I was downtown, you know, they said Mom owes all this money and she needs to produce him, and it just kind of evolved. I believe that everything he was telling me was true.
We're gonna make more money.
For what?
We have more to sell.
But Sister Cindy isn't buying it, and she makes sure the police know it.
As far as she was concerned, things weren't adding up in her mind.
He took her.
And I don't...
Ricky was telling different accounts of why Marilyn left to different people. She was calling the sheriff's office 2 or 3 times a day. She was out being a one-man detective. I mean, she was looking into every aspect. Everything that Stacy and Ricky would tell her, she'd go check into.
What do you guys think happened to Mom?
What do you mean, what happened? We know what happened to her. Why do you keep on asking these questions?
Because she's gone. I don't...
Yeah, she went with him.
Know what happened.
Ricky really didn't seem at all concerned about his mother's disappearance and almost seemed irritated that his sister was going to such great lengths to try to find her mother.
But Stacy, don't you think she would have like stood up to him or
you know, Cheryl,
Are
you
you
just have to
kidding
get
me?
it out.
Did she stand up whenever he came after you and me, or when he came after Ricky? No, she didn't. She did not stand up
for my children.
Marilyn was very close to her children and the family, and she was convinced that there was absolutely no way that she would have left to go anywhere without contacting her and the kids.
They had a screwed up relationship. You should just let it go. She's gone now, and that's the end of it.
We checked with the Social Security Administration and found out that there was no active investigation into the Social Security fraud, and then even if there had been, it would have been a civil matter, and they wouldn't have been looking to put Marilyn in jail for this. It made us suspicious about the story that Ricky had told his sister, because clearly it was a lie.
Investigators begin to wonder if Ricky knows more than he's letting on. They also question whether or not Stacy is involved.
Stacy is sort of in the background in the beginning of this entire thing. She seems to just more or less go along with Ricky and whatever Ricky says.
I don't...
Look, you know I'm telling the truth.
That was
If Dad did come back, I don't think that she's... I don't think he was... I think he hurt her, is what I think.
Certainly, there was some suspicion very early on that, that this could have been over money.
Hey, detective, come check this out.
With Marilyn missing nearly 3 months and a sizable inheritance as a possible motive, Detective Mark Hussey suspects she is dead. Suspicion mounts around Ricky Cannonen.
I ran a driver license check on Ricky Jr. And the day after Marilyn's disappearance, Ricky went down to the driver license bureau and changed his name to Richard Cannon and took the junior off.
He also changed his address. It's the same as his mother's address.
That's suspicious.
Another huge red flag. Now he owns that house for all practical purposes because the deed's in his father's name, same name as his. So now he can sell it, he can do whatever he wants to with it.
Up to this point in the investigation, Hussey's worked behind the scenes and has never met Ricky or Stacy until he drops by their house.
These are nice.
Well,
Everything for sale?
yeah, they're for sale. They're all collectibles. They're not that cheap.
I actually was off duty that day, and I rode by there and they were having a yard sale. I just pretended to shop. There were a number of collectibles that they were selling in this yard sale. I saw Susan come out with some items in her hand, and she said,
"What do you want me to do with all of this?"
Oh, Mom wanted me to sell all that stuff.
If Stacy is helping Ricky protect her mother's things, why would she be selling them at a yard sale?
Susan and I, we worked 9.5 years for a theme park, and we just decided we had way too much stuff, and we just decided we'd have a yard sale. We sold off some of our memorabilia and some household things.
Later that day, Cindy shows up unexpectedly.
Hey, what are you doing selling Mom's stuff?
We didn't sell Mom's stuff.
Yes, you did. This is her important stuff that she was leaving for us.
Valuable stuff's in storage.
Calm down. The valuable stuff is in storage.
Stacy tries to convince her sister that their mother's collections are safe.
You can go take
How does Ricky know what's important?
In storage.
We know it's important to her. What, do you think I don't know my own mom?
She called me a liar. I said, do you want to go see the storage unit? He has the keys. She says, I don't want anything from him. And I said, okay, well, I can't help you. I don't have the keys to the storage unit.
You can go take a look if you want yourself.
Cheryl, go in the house. But go in the house.
While the siblings argue over the fate of their mother's collectibles, Detective Hussey begins following Marilyn's money trail.
Hey, Rick, come here.
I pulled tons of bank records. All of it was not looking good.
Here's money leaving Marilyn's bank account. It ends up in several business accounts.
At some point, one of the bank records indicated that there was some activity on one of Marilyn's bank accounts where money was being removed and funneled out of there.
These transactions are all happening after Marilyn is reported missing.
Either Marilyn's out there somewhere and she's sending money, and of course, at that point, we were hoping that she was. But as we continued to look into this, we realized that an account had been set up for home banking. So now we start trying to figure out where the access had originated.
Gotcha.
What you got?
It's Marilyn's online banking account. I was able to trace it to Ricky and Stacy's house.
That's interesting. Let's call their bluff.
Okay.
Let's see if someone steps forward and tries to reopen it.
So we freeze the account, and later on that afternoon, I get a phone call from a lady in Tennessee, the calling center.
Detective Hussey.
And she says, I just received a telephone call from a female who identified herself as Marilyn Cannon. And here's the phone number.
Do you need anything else?
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
So I called the phone number, and Ricky answers the phone.
Hello?
This is the bank calling. Do you have an issue with your account?
Yes. My mother needs these funds released so we can pay her bills.
Oh? Have you talked to your mother?
Yes, I'm in contact with her.
Well, can you have her call me? You know, is she local? Can I talk to her?
No, she's not here locally.
Detective Hussey waits for Marilyn Cannon to call. She never does. The investigator does get a call from another of Marilyn's neighbors.
He was the Gladys Kravitz of the neighborhood over there. Saw everything, knew everything that was going on, and he called me and he said, they're putting concrete down in the garage over there.
You ready to go yet? Almost.
Now we were at the point in the investigation where we were going to force their hand, and this was all going to come to a head.
3 months after his mother's disappearance, Ricky Cannon is having concrete poured on her garage floor. But when investigators looking for Marilyn Cannon get wind of this, they become extremely suspicious.
I'm thinking there's something under there that they don't want us to find.
Detective Hussey asks Ricky to come down to the police station to talk and to bring Stacy along.
He says, police want to talk to us. They have some information about Mom and her missing persons. They have some credit card hits or something.
We'll be able to handle it.
We contacted the IRS. There is no investigation into your mother. We know you've been taking money from her bank account, and we know there's something under her garage floor.
He's getting a little nervous, and he's realizing that we've got a pretty good idea about what's going on here.
What's in there, Ricky?
He gets his wallet out, and he pulls out an old receipt that's been folded in his wallet for obviously many years.
I found this in my mom's stuff.
It's a receipt from a rental company from 1989 for a concrete saw. So we asked him, well, what's this have to do with anything?
That's what she did. She did that to my dad.
So we've got a search warrant for the garage.
Okay. You stay here.
Ricky hints that his mother Marilyn is behind the murder of his father Richard Sr. In another interrogation room, detectives talk with his sister Stacy.
Where's your mother's car, Stacy?
I have no idea.
Stacy's pretty much not saying anything. She doesn't really give up anything. Her story is that she doesn't know about anything. She doesn't know what Ricky did. She's confronted with some of this information, and she just doesn't know.
Well, Ricky says it's in a storage facility that you rented.
They started asking me questions about my brother, and I thought, this is kind of odd. I thought we were here to talk about my mother.
What's in the garage, Stacy?
I have no idea.
I said, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. I said, I don't have a clue what you are talking about.
I don't know.
It hit really hard when Ricky told them where they could find my mother's car. Then I just knew something was really bad. And then they started telling me about all this money. This much money's gone, this much money's gone. I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Stacy realizes the cops think she has something to do with her mother's disappearance. And for the first time, Stacy suspects that her big brother and protector has done something terrible.
He reaches out to try to touch my hands, and I try to pull away from him. I mean, I'm starting to put pieces together. I don't know what to do with what I'm putting together in my head.
You okay? You don't look too good.
They think I masterminded this.
No, they told me I did.
No, they told me I did for them.
He's calm. He's, we need to stick together. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't want to talk to you.
After hours of questioning, the detectives let Ricky and Stacy go.
We drive home.
Stacy.
We're just in the house, and he says,
I have to tell you that I did kill Mom.
well, then I just about lost it. And he says, and unless you want Susan implicated, you need to commit suicide with me.
You're gonna have to commit suicide with me. Because otherwise, they're gonna arrest Susan too, and both of your lives will be destroyed.
Ricky is no longer Stacy's protector. He is a cold-blooded killer.
So the obvious question is, the police think you're involved in something you think you're not involved in. Your brother is basically telling you that he killed your mom. Stacy's partner, Susan, was in the house. Why don't you do something to get away? It's impossible to know what your reactions would be without having lived not just the last hour of her life, but the entire history of her life.
I don't think I was thinking at all. I think it was a total revert back to my childhood. Here's a male figure, here's somebody older than me, here's somebody much larger than me saying, okay, let's go. And it's just, you just do it. You don't think about it, you don't second guess yourself, because here's your authority figure telling you to go ahead and do it.
We've got them under electronic surveillance. We've got some of our undercover people who are monitoring the activities of that car and where it goes. And we hear on the radio that they've lost the car. They can't find it.
Orlando police desperately search for Ricky and Stacy Cannonan's car after they've slipped surveillance.
They know about where they lost it, but not exactly. And it's in a collection of storage rental places.
Apparently they have a storage in here. Yeah, but which one?
So they begin to go through all of these storage rental places. Well, they finally come to one that they hear a car engine running inside.
Hey, are you okay? Wake up. Let's get you out of here. Come on. Come on, I got you. Come on.
They find them in there. They've ingested some cold medicine and alcohol and things like that, and then left the car running in hopes of committing suicide.
I don't think I was thinking. I think I was just shutting down. I think I was just going on autopilot with the understanding of just do what he says, it'll be okay.
You've got to go back to the young girl who has her father forcing her to go give him oral sex with a gun to her head. And what she's trained to do is you don't say anything and you don't make a sound. And then it won't get worse. That is the psyche of somebody who will sit and let whatever's gonna happen, happen.
We've got a note here. Let's see what it says.
Ricky and Stacy leave separate suicide notes. In his, Ricky admits to murdering their mother.
And Stacy said, we had something to do with Mom leaving, is how that note was worded.
I just couldn't use the word die. I just couldn't do it. I could not come to terms with it. It was just too much for me to actually put those words on paper.
Stacy is sent to a mental hospital, and Ricky gets charged with his mother Marilyn's murder. He swears he didn't act alone, and the truth is shocking. 3 months after Marilyn Cannonan's disappearance, her son Ricky is charged with her murder. He reveals that his father was murdered too, and he knows where both bodies are buried.
Dad is under the garage floor. Mom is buried in a rock garden behind Stacy and Susan's house.
There was a place in the concrete, obviously, that had been cut and replaced with fresh concrete. You could see the outline very clearly where it had been cut and then redone. The remains were probably 8 or 10 feet deep. They dug a pretty deep hole. We found an area that looked like bone. And it turned out that it was a human skull. We found dentures attached to that skull. We were able to check and find out, in fact, that Richard Sr. had worn dentures.
Detectives move up the street to Stacy and Susan's house to look for Marilyn's body.
They had made a little rock garden there, put a little border around it. So we started to dig there. We found her very quickly. She was not buried very deeply.
Now in custody, Ricky tells his version of his father's murder. It begins, he says, 15 years ago, when his mother frantically called him to her house. Ricky arrives to find his father, Richard, already dead.
On the garage floor is this bundle wrapped up in a tarp, and it's a pretty sizable bundle because Richard Cannonen Sr. was a big guy. And he says he never asked his mother what happened, never confronted him, never asked him anything. But they decided that they would put him in the freezer in the garage.
Ricky then implicates Stacy in their father's murder.
Ricky tells me that Stacy told him at some point that his father was in bed asleep, and she went in and shot him in the back of the head. And in fact, when we did the autopsy, there was a small caliber bullet hole in the back of the skull, and we were able to recover a bullet from inside that skull.
Stacy insists she knew nothing about her father's fate until Ricky's arrest.
No, I did not kill my father.
Ricky pleads guilty to Marilyn's murder in exchange for a lesser sentence. And again, he implicates Stacy, this time in their mother's slaying.
Ricky said they took Marilyn out to dinner that night. They took her to a movie, and after the movie, they came home, and Stacy had bought a taser a few days before that. Ricky said I got on top of her, I taped up her hands, and he said I taped her mouth and nose shut with duct tape. And then I sat on her chest and stared into her eyes until she was dead.
Stacy is outraged by her brother's allegations.
That was just about as close to a heart attack as I've ever come in my entire life. I just can't believe this is happening. This is just totally just ridiculous. I kept a belief, you know, in my own innocence, even if nobody else believed in me, that I knew I would be okay. I knew that the truth would come out, and I knew that I would be okay.
Stacy is charged with murdering her parents. Prosecutors are forced to drop the charge in her father's case for a lack of evidence. At her trial for killing her mother, it's her word against Ricky's.
You know, you just don't know. You don't know what 12 strangers who don't know you are going to think.
Stacy described that they went out for their early dinner, their early movie. They dropped Marilyn off and they went home. And that was all that she knew about what happened. There was never really evidence that the movie night was the same as the night that Marilyn got killed, as Ricky claimed.
In the end, there is little evidence that Stacy has anything to do with Marilyn's murder. She's declared not guilty. Her brother Ricky gets 30 years.
He's my brother. He'll always be my brother. I'll always remember the times he was there when we all needed him. I'll always love him, but I'll always have a fear of him.
The murders tear apart the Cannonen siblings. Stacy and her sister no longer speak.
When we start talking about my mother, there's a lot of pain there. Every day I miss her. She had a lot to live for. She had a lot of happy years left. It's a crying shame.